Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. We revisit what was certainly a very interesting story in the spring in college football. And to be clear, it came full circle over the last couple of days. Okay. So obviously spring, April, we were focused mostly on college football, college basketball transfer portal on this show, but there was a college football story that absolutely swept all of college football. And that was the Nico Iamaleava drama. Okay. You don't need me to tell you, we don't need to relitigate it. We don't need to relive it, but we know about 2 days before the transfer portal opened, 2 days before the Tennessee spring game, Pete Nakos from On3 has this report that Nico Iamaleava, his father, his quote-unquote camp, are basically trying to leverage the transfer portal to get him more money at Tennessee. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's not. Some people defended Nico until the next day when he did not show up to practice, and it was very clear that that was exactly what was happening. Full circle, it becomes clear, it becomes untenable. Nico ends up entering the transfer portal. I thought the whole situation was played terribly by Nico's side of things. He ends up in a worse situation for less money than if he had just stayed at Tennessee. I think Josh Heupel did absolutely everything right, okay? So that was what we thought we knew as of April. Nico, of course, now at UCLA. Well, I bring it up because we got maybe a little bit of a different version of events, stuff that was maybe talked about behind the scenes, stuff that I had even heard a little bit in the process of that. And it came via Kirk Herbstreit. Okay, so Kirk Herbstreit was on a podcast this week. I got to look up the name of the pod because I forgot it off the top of my head. The Boys Down South podcast, maybe something like that. And he was somehow the conversation about Nico came up. Now, it's worth noting the podcast actually came out last week. I looked into this, but this clip started going viral on Monday. Here is Kirk Herbstreit on what he knows about the Nico Iamaleava situation.
I don't know the true story. I've heard different stories. Some people thought it was about money. I've heard from close sources it was more about Nico's dad going to Josh back in December before they played Ohio State, like, hey, listen, you got to get better at offensive line and better at receiver. You got to get better around him if you want us to stick around, which blows my mind that a college quarterback's dad would do that to a head coach. And I think at the end of the day, when they got into spring ball, it was still more of you haven't brought people in to make him and this offense better. Again, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was hearing. So I don't think it was necessarily about the money. I think it was more about, is Nico going to be able to play well enough to eventually be a first pick in the draft with the players that they had around him? That's disgusting to me if that's true.
That was Kirk Herbstreit on the Nico Iamaleava situation in the Try That in a Small Town podcast, which is certainly a nice metaphor for what went down in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think Nico and his dad found out the hard way about that one. What did the kids say? F around and find out. What is it? F-A something. F-A, let's see, Producer Matt's going to bail me out here. F-A-F-O. Yeah, Nico and his dad, F-A-F-O. Try that in a small town. Perfect metaphor for the conversation. So let's go ahead and dive in because it does kind of give a new twist to this Nico Iamaleava situation, okay? So let me say this. One, as far as the whole conversation about Nico wanting more help on the O-line, more help on the wide receiver group, that was something that I actually heard right around the time of the college football playoff. Now, I'll be honest, I heard it after the college football playoff. And it kind of makes sense, I guess, in hindsight. I didn't hear it before, but remember, Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler called the first game of the college football playoff for Tennessee, their only game in the college football playoff, Tennessee, Ohio State. And to the credit of Ohio State, they really did get after Nico pretty bad. I can be critical of Nico. He's not the reason they lost that game. Ohio State was just awesome, okay? But I did hear at that time that Nico's camp felt like they needed more help along the O-line. Nico's camp felt like they needed more help in the receiver room. We can agree, disagree, but that was a sentiment that if you kind of followed the story behind the scenes, you knew was the case. With that said, it doesn't make what unfolded from there, because I know what, by the way, I know what people are going to say. Everyone's going to say, oh, well, of course, every quarterback wants better wide receivers and better offensive line. Okay, I get that. It doesn't make what happened from there any less weird. It doesn't make Nico any more right, and it doesn't make Josh Heupel any more wrong. I still think Josh Heupel handled it perfectly. I still think Nico and his camp handled it terribly. So let's go ahead and just dive into some of the facts about all this, because first of all, I think what Herbstreit said is right. Whatever is going on behind the scenes, dad going to the coach, it's kind of lame, right? Doesn't it feel like middle school? Doesn't it feel like, my son, why isn't he playing shortstop? He's the best player. It's like, dude, shut up. This is, by the way, why you need a real agent. And I think Nico has since gotten one, but this was a conversation in April of like, this is what happens when you have your buddy and your dad handling things. There are professional ways to handle things. Nico and his camp did not. Beyond that, let me say this. If that was the argument, two things. One, it's idiotic. And two, it was handled, again, in the worst way possible. Because here's the bottom line. If the argument is Nico didn't have enough help, well, guess what? You know what Josh Heupel did? He went out and got him help in the offseason. If the argument is your O-line isn't good enough, well, guess what? The number one high school offensive tackle in all of high school football last year, you know who it was? A player by the name of David Sanders. Not sure if you heard of him. Tennessee fans have. You know why? Because he committed to Tennessee. So, we don't have enough help along the offensive line. They literally went out and got the number one offensive tackle in America. And history tells us a good offensive tackle can step in and play day one in college football. Caden Proctor did it at Alabama. Jordan Seaton did it at Colorado. And David Sanders is going to do it at Tennessee next year. By the way, talk about the wide receivers. Well, guess what? Mike Matthews was a 5-star 2 classes ago, and he is going to be a breakout star this year. I can promise you that. So there was help on the way. By the way, it is worth noting as well, some of the wide receivers that were on the team in 2022 before Nico took over, or 2023 when Nico took over, and then 2024 last year, regressed with Nico as a quarterback. Chris Braswell was better with Joe Milton as his quarterback than Nico Iamaleava. That is indisputable. So it's not all on the players. At some point, it's on the quarterback. But what it goes back to, again, to me, is that it was handled in about the worst manner possible. Because here's the bottom line. Listen, we can agree or disagree the state of college sports. Should players be able to transfer, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is it is justifiable if you're a quarterback to want help along the O-line and the wide receiver room. Now, Josh Heupel helped, but if the argument is he didn't, guess what? You don't wait until late April to whine about it. You don't whine about it before the playoff, by the way. You know what you do? You play the playoff game, you suck it up, and I know there's all sorts of reports that Nico, there was talk he wasn't even going to play in the playoff, whatever. But the bottom line is, you know what you do? You play in the playoff game, and if you don't think it's going to get better, guess what you do? You enter the portal in December, because that's the point where you actually have leverage. That's the point where teams actually need a quarterback. That is the point where you can say to Tennessee, if you don't go and get me help, I will go somewhere else. And he chose not to do that. By the way, that's not only the time when you're going to get the best opportunity to go somewhere else that is comparable to Tennessee, that is also the time that all the good wide receivers and offensive linemen are in the transfer portal. By June, by the spring portal, I mean, most guys don't enter the portal. If you're going to enter the portal, most guys enter in December. So if the argument is that that you need more help, then December is the time that you have to not only vocalize that, but if you're going to take action, then you have to do it. Let me take it a third step further. If that is your issue, not enough talent around you, you know what else you do not do? You don't ask for more money and basically try to hold out, because ultimately, even if he wanted more help, at the end of the day, that was still the issue. Was Nico's camp, I don't want to blame it all on Nico, was basically like, we need more money or we're not coming back. And so it's like, do you need more money? By the way, you're making $2+ million a year. You weren't even that good. Tennessee made the college football playoff because of Dylan Sampson and the defense. And so if the argument is, I need more money, well, doesn't that take away from the O-line? Doesn't that take away from the skill position guys that you need to succeed? Because it kind of feels like it does to me. So to me, what this story tells me is two things. Is one, like I said, I truly believe in my heart of hearts, this should teach every young, high-profile player a simple lesson. Get a real agent. Unless your dad's a lawyer, unless your dad negotiates, unless your mom negotiates for a living, I'm sure Nico's dad, in his heart of hearts, thought he was doing what was best for his son, but you don't know what you're doing. You don't have the leverage that you think. And I think he irrevocably potentially screwed up his son's career. I truly believe that. He took less money to go to UCLA in a higher tax state significantly. Believe me, I fill out tax forms every year in California. It ain't pretty, okay? Move to Nashville tomorrow if I could, if, wife's got a job here that she can't really leave. Anyway, another conversation for another day. He's paying a lot more in taxes, making less money on an inferior team. That's why if you had real representation, this would have never happened. Certainly not in the manner that it did. Maybe you enter the portal in December. Maybe you find a better landing spot. 2, I do believe this just proves that Tennessee, they're in a better spot without Nico than with him. By the way, producer Matt, you could pop up the Torres on Tennessee, Torres on the Vols Twitter page again, because if you're a Tennessee fan, that's where you need to be following Torres on the Vols for all your late-breaking Tennessee news. But to me, this speaks to Tennessee is going to be in a better situation. There it is right there. Torres on the Vols on Twitter. Tennessee is going to be in a better situation without Nico. They don't need the drama. He wasn't that good, and Tennessee fans know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but he wasn't that good. They didn't make the playoff because of him. Now, they didn't make the playoff despite him. I don't want to just bash the kid because he wasn't terrible, but Josh Heupel didn't trust him. Dylan Sampson was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. The defense was elite. I think we looked it up. I think it was 9 categories. They were top 25 in the country. And yeah, Tennessee's going to be better without him. We don't know what we're going to get from Joey Aguilar, but this is not the drama you need in the locker room. You got 84 other guys that are all pulling in the same direction. This guy's making it about himself. Tennessee's going to be just fine. Tennessee football was great before Nico Iamaleava. They're going to be pretty good this year, I think, and they're going to be great after. Thank you to the Try That in a Small Town podcast, because Nico Iamaleava and his family effed around and found out.